Emma Carter stood at the starting line of the Boston Marathon, her heart beating fast in her chest. The morning air was cool and fresh. Around her, thousands of other runners stretched their legs and checked their watches. Emma was 40 years old, and this was going to be her greatest race. She had trained for months, running every day through rain and sun. Her coach believed she could win this time. The gun fired, and the crowd of runners moved forward like a wave. Emma found her rhythm quickly. Her feet hit the ground in a steady pattern. Left, right, left, right. She had been running marathons for 15 years. It felt as natural as breathing. The first 10 kilometers went perfectly. Emma stayed with the lead group, saving her energy for later in the race. She smiled at the crowds cheering from the sidewalks. Children held up signs with encouraging words. The sun rose higher in the sky, warming the cool morning. At kilometer 15, Emma began to feel strong. This was her favorite part of any race. Her body was warm, her muscles loose, and her mind clear. She moved up through the group, passing 2 runners from Kenya and 1 from Ethiopia. Her coach had told her to wait until kilometer 30 to make her big move, but Emma felt good, very good. The streets of Boston flew past. Emma knew these roads well. She had run this race 5 times before, finishing in the top 10 twice. But today felt different. Today, she believed she could win. At kilometer 25, Emma was in 3rd place. The 2 runners ahead of her were strong, but Emma could see they were getting tired. She increased her speed just a little, closing the gap between them. The crowd roared louder. They could sense something special was happening. Then, at kilometer 32, everything changed. Emma was running down a slight hill when her right foot landed wrong. It was such a small thing, barely noticeable. Her foot turned just a few centimeters to the side, but that was enough. She felt a sharp, terrible pain shoot through her knee. The pain was so intense that for a moment she could not breathe. Emma tried to keep running. She took one more step, then another, but her knee would not work properly. It buckled underneath her, and she fell hard onto the pavement. The impact knocked the wind from her lungs. Other runners flowed around her like water around a rock. Some called out, asking if she was okay. Emma tried to stand, but the pain was too much. She sat on the street, holding her knee, watching hundreds of runners pass by. Tears ran down her face, mixing with the sweat on her cheeks. A medical team arrived within minutes. They carefully lifted Emma onto a stretcher and carried her to an ambulance. As they drove away, Emma turned her head to watch the other runners still moving toward the finish line. She could hear the distant sound of the crowd cheering, but she was no longer part of the race. She was no longer running. At the hospital, the doctors did many tests: X-rays, MRI scans, physical examinations. Finally, a doctor with gray hair and kind eyes sat down next to Emma's bed. His name was Dr. Morrison, and he had been a runner himself once. "Emma," he said gently, "you have torn your anterior cruciate ligament. That is the ACL. You have also damaged your meniscus. These are serious injuries." Emma stared at him, not wanting to understand. "Can you fix it?" she asked. Her voice sounded small and scared. "We can operate," Dr. Morrison said. "The surgery will repair the damage. After that, you will need physical therapy. Lots of it. You will be able to walk normally again, maybe even run for exercise. But Emma, I must be honest with you. Your career as a professional marathon runner is over." The words hit Emma like a physical blow. For a long moment she could not speak. Finally she whispered, "Are you sure?" "Maybe if I work really hard." Dr. Morrison shook his head slowly. "I am sorry. I know this is not what you want to hear, but your knee will never be strong enough for professional racing again. The risk of another serious injury is too high." Emma turned her face away from the doctor and closed her eyes. She felt like something inside her was breaking, something that could never be put back together. Running was not just what she did, it was who she was. The surgery took 3 hours. When Emma woke up, her leg was wrapped in bandages and her knee was swollen to twice its normal size. The pain medication made her feel foggy and strange. She drifted in and out of sleep, and in her dreams, she was always running. Her coach, Marcus, came to visit her in the hospital. He was a big man with a loud voice, but today he spoke quietly. He held Emma's hand and told her how proud he was of her career. He talked about all the races she had won, all the records she had broken. But Emma knew what he was really saying. He was saying goodbye. "What will I do now?" Emma asked him. Her voice cracked on the last word. Marcus squeezed her hand. "You will heal," he said, "and then you will find a new path. You are strong, Emma. This injury does not change that." But Emma did not feel strong. She felt broken. The next 6 months were the hardest of Emma's life. The physical therapy was painful and exhausting. 3 times a week, a therapist named Sarah made Emma do exercises that hurt so much she sometimes cried. Slowly, very slowly, her knee grew stronger. She learned to walk without crutches, then without a limp. After 4 months, she could even jog for short distances. But jogging was not running, and running for exercise was not racing. Emma lived in a small apartment in Chicago. Before the injury, she had rarely been home. She was always traveling to races, training with her team, meeting with sponsors. Now, her apartment felt like a prison. The walls were covered with photographs from her racing career. Emma in Berlin, holding up a medal. Emma in New York, crossing the finish line with her arms raised. Emma in Tokyo, standing on a podium with other runners. She took all the photographs down and put them in a box. She could not stand to look at them anymore. Emma's friends tried to help. They called her, invited her to dinner, told her to stay positive. But Emma did not want to talk to anyone. She felt like they could not understand. They still had their lives, their careers, their purposes. Emma had lost hers. She spent her days watching television and staring out the window. She watched other people walking on the street below, going to work, living their lives. She felt disconnected from the world, like she was watching everything from behind a glass wall. At night, Emma often could not sleep. She would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the race in Boston. She replayed that moment over and over in her mind, her foot turning, the pain shooting through her knee, the fall. What if she had been more careful? What if she had waited to make her move? What if she had just run the race differently? These thoughts went around and around in her head, like a wheel that never stopped turning. One day, about 8 months after the injury, Emma's mother came to visit. Her mother was a retired teacher, a practical woman who did not believe in feeling sorry for yourself. She looked around Emma's messy apartment, at the empty food containers and dirty dishes, and shook her head. "Emma," she said firmly, "this cannot continue. You need to make a change." "I do not want to talk about it, Mom," Emma said tiredly. "Too bad." "We are going to talk about it anyway." Her mother sat down on the couch and patted the seat next to her. Reluctantly, Emma sat down. "I know you are hurting," her mother said. "I know this injury has been terrible for you, but you cannot spend the rest of your life sitting in this apartment feeling sad. You need to do something. Anything." "Like what?" Emma asked bitterly. "Running was the only thing I was good at. The only thing I cared about." "That is not true," her mother said. "You are good at many things. You are determined. You are strong. You never give up. These qualities do not disappear just because you cannot race anymore." Emma shook her head. "It feels like they did." Her mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "What if you moved somewhere new? Started fresh, away from all these memories?" Emma looked around her apartment. Every corner reminded her of her old life. Her running shoes by the door, her training schedule still on the refrigerator, the empty space on the wall where her medals used to hang. "Where would I go?" she asked. "Anywhere," her mother said. "Somewhere quiet, somewhere peaceful, somewhere you can figure out who Emma Carter is when she is not running." The idea planted itself in Emma's mind like a seed. Over the next few weeks, she thought about it more and more. Finally, she made a decision. She would leave Chicago. She would find a small town somewhere, far from the racing circuit, far from her old life. She would start over. Emma spent hours online, looking at different towns and cities. She wanted somewhere small, somewhere beautiful, somewhere completely different from Chicago. One evening, she found a place called Riverside. It was a small town on the coast, with a population of only 5,000 people. The pictures showed a pretty main street, a harbor with fishing boats, and houses with colorful gardens. Emma had never been to Riverside. She did not know anyone there. That was exactly what she wanted. She called her mother. "I am moving to Riverside," she said. "It is a small town on the coast. I am going to start over there." Her mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I think that is a wonderful idea, sweetheart. When are you leaving?" "As soon as I can pack," Emma said. 2 weeks later, Emma loaded all her belongings into her old car and drove away from Chicago. She did not look back. Emma arrived in Riverside on a gray afternoon in late September. As she drove into town, a light rain was falling, making the streets shine like mirrors. The town was even smaller than she had expected. The main street had only a dozen shops, a small grocery store, a post office, a library, and 2 restaurants. But it was pretty, in a quiet, simple way. Emma had rented a small cottage on the edge of town. The landlord, an elderly woman named Mrs. Chen, was waiting for her when she arrived. Mrs. Chen was tiny, barely 5 feet tall, with white hair and a warm smile. "Welcome to Riverside," Mrs. Chen said, handing Emma the keys to the cottage. "You are going to love it here. It is a peaceful place, good for the soul." The cottage had 2 rooms, a small kitchen, and a bathroom. It was simply furnished, but clean and comfortable. Through the window, Emma could see the ocean in the distance, gray and calm under the cloudy sky. She unpacked her few belongings and tried not to think about how empty her life felt. For the first week, Emma did very little. She walked around the town, exploring the streets and the beach. She bought groceries from the small store, where the owner, Mr. Patterson, seemed to know everyone who came in. She ate simple meals in her cottage and read books from the library. It was a quiet life, very different from her old life in Chicago. But the quiet gave Emma too much time to think. At night, she still dreamed about running. She woke up with her heart racing, her legs moving under the blankets as if she was still in a race. During the day, she felt restless and aimless. She had left Chicago to escape her memories, but she had brought them with her. After 2 weeks, Emma knew she needed to do something. She could not just walk around town forever. She needed a job, something to fill her days and give her a purpose, even a small one. She went to the post office one morning to mail a letter to her mother. The post office was a small, old building with wooden floors that creaked when you walked on them. Behind the counter was a man in his 60s with gray hair and glasses. His name tag said, Harold. "Good morning," Harold said cheerfully. "What can I do for you today?" Emma handed him the letter. As he weighed it and attached stamps, she noticed a sign on the wall. "Mail carrier needed," it said. "Apply within." "Are you looking for someone to deliver mail?" Emma asked. Harold looked up, his eyes brightening. "Yes." "Our regular carrier, Tom, retired last month. We have been trying to find someone to replace him, but it is hard. Not many people want the job these days. It means walking or driving around town every day, in all kinds of weather. Are you interested? Emma hesitated. Delivering mail seemed like such an ordinary job, so different from being a professional athlete. But what else was she going to do? I might be, she said slowly. What does it involve? Harold explained that the job meant picking up mail from the post office each morning and delivering it to all the houses and businesses in Riverside. The town was small enough that one person could cover everything. Some areas you could reach by car, but other parts required walking, especially the houses up on the hill and the cottages near the beach. It is not exciting work, Harold admitted, but it is important. People depend on getting their mail, and you get to be outside, meet everyone in town. Tom loved it. He did it for 30 years. Emma thought about it. Walking around town every day, being outside, having a simple routine. Maybe that was exactly what she needed. All right, she said. I will do it. Harold smiled broadly. Wonderful. Can you start on Monday? I will train you for a few days, show you all the routes. Monday is fine, Emma said. As she walked back to her cottage, Emma felt a strange mixture of emotions. Part of her felt like she had just accepted a huge defeat. She had gone from being a champion athlete to delivering mail in a tiny town where nobody knew who she was. But another part of her felt a small sense of relief. At least now she would have something to do. At least she would have a reason to get out of bed every morning. On Monday morning, Emma arrived at the post office at 7 o'clock, just as Harold had told her. He showed her how to sort the mail into different bags for different routes, how to use the postal scanner, and how to fill out the delivery records. Then he took her out to show her the routes around town. They drove first, Harold pointing out which houses got mail delivered by car. Then they parked and walked the routes that had to be done on foot. Up the hill on the north side of town, where older houses sat among tall trees, along the beach road, where vacation cottages faced the ocean, through the main street, stopping at every shop and business. You will learn the routes quickly, Harold said. After a few weeks, you will know every house, every mailbox, every person. Tom used to say he could deliver the mail with his eyes closed. Emma did learn quickly. By the end of her first week, she knew most of the routes by heart. By the end of her second week, she could do them without thinking. Every morning, she arrived at the post office, loaded up her bags, and set out on her rounds. She delivered letters, packages, magazines, and bills. She said hello to people working in their gardens, waved to children playing in the street, petted dogs that came running up to greet her. It was simple work. Sometimes it was boring. But it was also somehow soothing. There was a rhythm to it, a predictability that Emma found comforting. Every day was the same, and after the chaos of her old life, that sameness felt good. As the weeks passed, Emma began to know the people of Riverside. It happened gradually, naturally, through small conversations and brief encounters during her mail rounds. There was Mrs. Kowalski, an elderly widow who always invited Emma in for tea. She lived in a big old house filled with photographs of her family. Mrs. Kowalski loved to talk, and Emma found herself looking forward to those short breaks in the morning, sitting in the warm kitchen and listening to stories about the old days in Riverside. There was Ben Torres, a fisherman who left for work before dawn every morning. Emma often saw him coming back to shore in the afternoon, his boat loaded with the day's catch. He would wave at her from the harbor, calling out greetings in his deep, friendly voice.
She lived in a big old house filled with photographs of her family. Mrs. Kowalski loved to talk, and Emma found herself looking forward to those short breaks in the morning, sitting in the warm kitchen and listening to stories about the old days in Riverside. There was Ben Torres, a fisherman who left for work before dawn every morning. Emma often saw him coming back to shore in the afternoon, his boat loaded with the day's catch. He would wave at her from the harbor, calling out greetings in his deep, friendly voice.
There was the Martinez family who ran the grocery store. They had 3 children, all under 10 years old. The children always ran out to greet Emma when she delivered their mail, asking about the interesting packages she had in her bag that day. There was Father Michael from the small church on the hill. He was a kind man who always had time to stop and chat. He never asked Emma personal questions, but somehow, talking to him made her feel peaceful. And there was Sarah Lynn, who owned the bookshop on Main Street. Sarah was about Emma's age, with short black hair and bright, intelligent eyes. She loved to recommend books to Emma, always seeming to know exactly what Emma needed to read. They became friends slowly, over many short conversations that eventually grew into longer ones. One rainy afternoon in November, Emma finished her mail route early and stopped by the bookshop. Sarah was rearranging a display of mystery novels when Emma walked in. "Emma," Sarah said, smiling. "Finished for the day?" "Just now," Emma said. "It is really coming down out there." "I know. Good day to be inside with a book." Sarah picked up a novel from the stack. "I just got this one in. I think you would like it. It is about a woman who moves to a small town and starts over after a difficult time in her life." Emma looked at the book, then at Sarah. "Is that your subtle way of telling me you have figured out my story?" Sarah shrugged, still smiling. "A little bit, but everyone in Riverside has a story. That is why most people end up here. It is a place where you can start over, be someone new, or find out who you really are." Emma took the book. "Did you come here to start over too?" "In a way," Sarah said. "I used to work in advertising in San Francisco. Very stressful, very competitive. I was good at it, but I was also miserable. One day I just quit, moved here, and opened this bookshop. Best decision I ever made." "Do you ever miss your old life?" Emma asked. Sarah thought about it. "Sometimes I miss the excitement. But I don't miss the stress, or the feeling that I was always running toward something without knowing what it was." She looked at Emma curiously. "What about you? Do you miss your old life?" Emma hesitated. She had not told anyone in Riverside about her past as a runner. She had wanted to leave all that behind. But looking at Sarah's open, friendly face, she found herself wanting to share. "I was a marathon runner," Emma said quietly. "A professional one. I got injured during a race. My career ended." Sarah nodded slowly. "That must have been really hard." "It was the hardest thing I have ever been through," Emma admitted. "Running was everything to me. When I could not do it anymore, I felt like I had lost myself." "And now?" Sarah asked gently. Emma thought about the question. "Now I deliver mail. It is not what I expected my life to become. But it is okay. Better than okay, actually. The people here are kind. The town is peaceful. I am starting to feel like maybe I can be happy again, even if this is not the life I planned." Sarah smiled. "That is good. And you know what? You are still running in a way. Just differently. I see you walking your routes every day, covering miles and miles. You are still moving, still going forward. Maybe that is what matters." Emma left the bookshop with the novel, and a lighter feeling in her heart. Sarah was right. She was still moving forward, even if it was in a different direction than she had expected. As autumn turned to winter, Emma settled more deeply into her life in Riverside. She learned to love the quiet rhythms of the town, the way the seasons changed the landscape, the way the ocean looked different every day. She still thought about running sometimes, still felt the ache of loss, but the ache was quieter now, more like an old scar than a fresh wound. She made more friends. She joined the town's book club, which met once a month at the library. She volunteered at the food bank on Thanksgiving. She even went to church a few times, more for the sense of community than for any religious reason. On her mail routes, Emma found that she was not just delivering letters and packages. She was also delivering a bit of connection, a small piece of the wider world, to people who looked forward to seeing her every day. Mrs. Kowalski told her once, You know, I think of you as my daily visitor. It is nice to know that someone will knock on my door every morning." Emma began to understand that her job, simple as it was, mattered to people. It was not glamorous, and she would never be famous for it. But it was real, and it was needed, and that gave it value. Winter came to Riverside, bringing cold winds and gray skies. The ocean turned dark and choppy. Rain fell more days than not. Emma bought a good waterproof jacket and warm boots. She learned to deliver mail in all kinds of weather, just as Harold had said she would need to. One evening in December, Emma was having dinner at the small restaurant on Main Street when Ben Torres sat down at her table. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. "Not at all," Emma said. They ate together, talking about small things. Ben told her about his fishing, about the best spots to catch cod and bass. Emma told him about some of the interesting packages she had delivered recently: a huge box of books for Sarah's bookshop, a mysterious crate for the hardware store.
"You know," Ben said, "it is good having you here in Riverside. Tom was great, but he was getting pretty old at the end. Sometimes he mixed up the mail, delivered things to the wrong houses. You are much more reliable." "Thanks," Emma said. "I like it here. It is a good place." "It is," Ben agreed. "Not very exciting, but good. Peaceful, safe." He paused, then added, "Though that might change soon." Emma looked at him surprised. "What do you mean?" Ben pointed out the window at the dark sky. "Weather forecast says we are going to get a big storm in the next few days. Maybe the biggest one in years. They are calling it a bomb cyclone. We get bad storms here sometimes, but this one sounds serious. Everyone is getting ready, buying extra supplies, making sure their houses are secure." Emma looked out at the rain falling on the street. She had lived through Chicago winters, but she had never experienced a real coastal storm. "Is it dangerous?" she asked. "It can be," Ben said. "Mostly it is just a lot of rain and wind. Sometimes the power goes out. Sometimes there is flooding, especially in the low areas near the river. But the town knows how to handle it. We will be okay." Emma nodded, but she felt a small flutter of nervousness in her stomach. She had felt safe in Riverside, comfortable in the predictable routine of her life here.
The idea of a big storm disrupted that sense of safety. Over the next 2 days, the whole town prepared for the coming storm. People stocked up on food, water, batteries, and candles. The hardware store sold out of flashlights and tarps. The mayor held a town meeting to discuss emergency procedures. Everyone who lived in flood-prone areas was advised to move to higher ground or stay with friends on the hill. Emma secured her cottage as best she could, taping the windows and bringing in everything from the small porch. She bought enough food to last a week and filled containers with water just in case the pipes stopped working. On the 3rd day, the storm arrived. The storm came in the night, and it came fast. Emma woke to the sound of rain hammering on her roof like drum beats. Wind screamed around the cottage, rattling the windows in their frames. She got out of bed and looked outside. Even in the darkness, she could see tree branches bending almost to the ground, leaves and debris flying through the air. The ocean was invisible, but she could hear it roaring in the distance, waves crashing against the shore with tremendous force. Emma's lights flickered once, twice, then went out. She felt her way through the dark cottage to find the flashlight she had left on the kitchen counter. The beam of light was small and weak against the overwhelming darkness. She sat on her couch, wrapped in a blanket, listening to the storm rage outside. It was unlike anything she had experienced before. The wind was so loud it sounded like a living thing, howling and shrieking. The rain came in waves, sometimes light, sometimes so heavy that Emma wondered if her roof could hold. The storm continued all through that night and into the next day. Emma could not see much through her windows. The world outside was a blur of gray rain and dark sky. Time seemed to stop. There was nothing to do but wait. By the afternoon of the 2nd day, the rain was even heavier. Emma looked out her window and saw water running down the street like a river. The storm drains could not handle the volume. Water pooled in every low spot, turned gardens into ponds, flowed over curbs and sidewalks. Emma's phone still had some battery left. She tried to call Harold at the post office, but the call would not go through. She tried Sarah at the bookshop with the same result. The cell towers must be down. She was completely cut off from everyone. That night, the second night of the storm, Emma barely slept. The wind seemed even stronger if that was possible. She heard crashes and bangs outside, trees falling, things breaking. She prayed that her cottage would stay standing. On the morning of the third day, the storm finally began to ease. The wind died down to a steady blow instead of a scream. The rain lightened to a heavy drizzle. Emma ventured outside for the first time to assess the damage. The sight shocked her. The streets were covered in debris, tree branches, roof tiles, pieces of fencing, all scattered everywhere. Many of the trees had fallen completely, blocking roads and crushing anything underneath them. Water still flowed through the streets, though not as fast as before. The sky was still dark and threatening, but at least Emma could see now. She walked carefully into town, climbing over fallen branches and wading through puddles. Other people were emerging from their homes too, looking around in shock at the destruction. The grocery store had lost part of its roof. The windows of several shops were broken. The small park was completely flooded, the benches and playground equipment standing in 2 feet of water. Emma found Harold at the post office. He was standing outside, looking at a large tree that had fallen across the building's entrance. "Emma," he said when he saw her, "thank goodness you are all right." "Have you seen the town? It is a disaster."
I know, Emma said. Is everyone okay? I think so, Harold said. I have been trying to check on people, but the phones are down and many of the roads are blocked. The mayor called an emergency meeting at the town hall an hour ago. That is where everyone is gathering. They walked to the town hall together. Inside, most of the town had crowded into the main room. The mayor, a woman named Carol Anderson, stood at the front, trying to organize everyone. Please, everyone, stay calm, Mayor Anderson said, her voice loud and firm. We are going to get through this. The power company says electricity will be restored in 2 or 3 days. The main road should be cleared by tomorrow. Most importantly, everyone seems to be safe. We have had no reports of serious injuries. What about the Stevens family? Someone called out. Has anyone checked on them? Mayor Anderson's face grew serious. That is what I was about to discuss. The Stevens family lives on Cedar Road, up in the hills. As many of you know, the river runs very close to their house. We have received reports that the river has flooded badly. The road to Cedar Road is completely washed out. We cannot drive there. A murmur ran through the crowd. Emma knew about Cedar Road. It was the most remote part of her mail route, a narrow dirt road that wound up into the forested hills above town. Only 2 families lived up there. One was the Stevens family. The Stevens family has a satellite phone, Mayor Anderson continued. They managed to get a call through to us this morning. They are trapped in their house. The water is waist deep around the building. They cannot leave. They are running out of food and water. And there is a medical emergency. The crowd grew louder, people asking questions all at once. Mayor Anderson raised her hands for quiet. Grace Stevens has diabetes, she said. She needs insulin. Without it, she will get very sick, very quickly. Her husband said they have enough insulin for maybe 2 more days. After that. She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Why do not we send a helicopter? Someone asked. The weather is still too bad for helicopters to fly safely, Mayor Anderson said. And even if they could fly, there is nowhere to land near the Stevens house. It is surrounded by tall trees. What about the National Guard? They are working on other emergencies in other towns. They cannot get here for at least 3 days. The crowd grew more agitated. Emma listened, feeling a growing sense of dread. The Stevens family was in serious danger, and nobody knew how to help them. "How far is it to Cedar Road?" someone asked. "By road, about 8 miles, Mayor Anderson said. "But you cannot drive there now. The road is gone. If you tried to walk, it would be much farther. You would have to go around the flooded areas, through the forest, maybe 12 or 15 miles, and over very rough terrain." Emma's mind was working quickly. 12 to 15 miles. In her racing days, she could run a marathon over 26 miles in just over 2.5 hours. 12 miles would have been easy for her, but that was before her injury. Could her knee handle that distance now? And this would not be running on a smooth road. This would be walking, maybe running, through mud and water and forest, over hills and through who knew what obstacles. But there was someone's life at stake. Grace Stevens needed insulin, needed help, and nobody else seemed able to provide it. Before she could talk herself out of it, Emma stepped forward. "I can go," she said. Her voice was quiet, but in the suddenly silent room, everyone heard her. People turned to look at her. Mayor Anderson frowned. "Emma, that is very brave, but it is too dangerous. The terrain is difficult even in good weather. Right now, with all the flooding and fallen trees." "I know the area," Emma said, speaking more strongly now. "I deliver mail to Cedar Road twice a week. I know the route, and I am in good shape. I can do this." "You would have to carry the insulin," Mayor Anderson said, "and probably some food and water too. That is extra weight." "I can handle it," Emma said. Deep inside, she was not sure if that was true, but she was sure that she had to try. Harold stepped forward. "Emma is our best chance," he said. "She is young, strong, and she knows the way. I think we should let her try." There was a long moment of silence. Then Mayor Anderson nodded slowly. "All right. Emma, if you are willing to do this, the town will be grateful. But please be careful. We do not want to send you into danger." "I will be careful," Emma promised. The next hour was a rush of preparation. The town doctor, Dr. Patel, gave Emma an insulated medical kit with insulin and syringes, along with careful instructions on how to store and handle it. The kit had ice packs to keep the medicine cold. Several people brought her food and water, energy bars, and sealed bottles. Ben Torres gave her a waterproof backpack to carry everything and a heavy-duty rain jacket that he used for fishing in bad weather. Sarah brought her a compass and a detailed map of the area. "Please come back safely," Sarah said, hugging Emma tightly. "I will," Emma said, but inside she was terrified. Her knee had been feeling good lately, but she had not tested it on anything like this. What if it gave out halfway there? What if she got lost in the forest? What if something worse happened? But she could not think about that now. There was a woman who needed help, a family who was depending on her. Emma had spent the last year feeling like her life had no purpose. Now, suddenly, she had a purpose, a clear one, an important one. She hoisted the backpack onto her shoulders. It was heavy, maybe 20 pounds. She adjusted the straps until it sat comfortably on her back. Then she took a deep breath and walked out of the town hall. A crowd had gathered outside to see her off. Someone started clapping, and soon everyone was clapping and cheering. Emma felt her eyes sting with unexpected tears. These people, her neighbors and friends, believed in her. They were trusting her to save Grace Stevens. She would not let them down. Emma started walking north toward the hills. The rain had slowed to a light drizzle, but the sky was still dark and threatening. Water ran everywhere, turning the streets into shallow streams. Emma's boots splashed through puddles and stepped over debris. Behind her, she could hear the crowd still calling out encouragements. The first mile was easy. She followed Main Street to the edge of town, then turned onto the road that led up into the hills. This was a paved road, usually quiet and peaceful. Now it was a mess of mud and water, with fallen branches scattered across it like pickup sticks. Emma walked quickly, her breath coming steady and easy. Her knee felt good so far. That was a relief. She had been worried that it would start hurting immediately. She focused on keeping a steady pace, not too fast, saving her energy for the long journey ahead. After about 2 miles, she reached the first major obstacle. A large tree had fallen across the road, blocking the way completely. Its trunk was thick, too high to climb over easily. Emma had to leave the road and push through the underbrush around it. Branches scratched at her face and caught on her jacket. Mud sucked at her boots. It took her 15 minutes to get around the tree and back to the road. This was how it would be, Emma realized. Constant obstacles, constant delays. She could not just walk straight to Cedar Road. She would have to find her way around problems, over and through them. At the 3-mile mark, the paved road ended. From here, there was only a dirt track, barely wide enough for one car. In good weather, this track was rough but passable. Now it was mostly underwater. The rain from the storm had turned it into a muddy stream. Emma looked at her map. She could try to follow the flooded track, or she could leave it and cut through the forest. The forest would be harder to navigate, but at least she would not be walking through water the whole time. She decided on the forest. Leaving the track, Emma pushed into the trees. The forest was dense and dark, the canopy overhead blocking most of the light. Ferns and bushes grew thick on the ground. Emma had to push through them, stepping carefully over roots and rocks. The ground was soft and slippery, muddy from the rain. More than once, she almost fell. Her knee started to ache. Not badly, just a dull throb, a reminder that it was not as strong as it used to be. Emma ignored it. She had to. She checked her compass regularly, making sure she was still heading north and slightly east, toward Cedar Road. After an hour of pushing through the forest, Emma came to a small creek. Normally, this creek was maybe a foot wide, a gentle trickle of water. Now it was 10 feet wide and flowing fast, brown and angry. Emma walked along the bank, looking for a place to cross. Finally, she found a spot where a fallen log stretched across the water. The log was wet and covered in moss, slippery as ice. Emma stepped onto it carefully, her arms out for balance. The water rushed below her. If she fell in, she would get soaked, and the medical kit in her backpack might get wet. She could not let that happen. Step by careful step, Emma made her way across the log. Halfway across, her foot slipped. Her heart jumped into her throat, but she caught her balance, steadied herself, and kept going. On the other side, she jumped down to the muddy bank, relief flooding through her. She was now 4 miles from Riverside, according to her calculations. That meant she was about halfway there. Her legs were tired, her knee was aching more, and she was soaked with rain and sweat. But she was making progress. Emma kept walking. The forest seemed endless, tree after tree, all looking the same. The light was fading too. She checked her watch. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but the storm clouds made it seem later. She needed to reach the Stevens house before dark, or she might not be able to find it at all. She picked up her pace, moving from a walk to a light jog. Her knee protested, the ache growing sharper. Emma gritted her teeth and kept going. Pain was just a signal, she reminded herself. It did not mean she could not continue. She had run through pain many times in her racing days. She could do it now. The forest finally began to thin. Emma emerged onto a rocky hillside. Below her, she could see a valley, and running through it, a swollen river. It was much bigger than it should be, brown water churning and foaming as it rushed over rocks and around trees. This was the river that ran past the Stevens house. Emma consulted her map again. She needed to follow the river east for about 2 miles. Then she would reach Cedar Road, and the Stevens house would be just up the road from there. The hillside was steep and covered in loose rocks. Emma had to move slowly, testing each step to make sure the ground would hold. Once, a rock shifted under her foot and went tumbling down the hill. Emma's heart pounded as she regained her balance. By the time she reached the bottom of the hill and the river's edge, it was 4 o'clock. Emma was exhausted. Her legs felt like rubber. Her knee was a constant source of pain now, throbbing with every step. The backpack seemed to have doubled in weight. She wanted to stop, to rest. But she could not. Not yet. She followed the river east. The water was high, covering the usual path completely. Emma had to walk on higher ground, through tangled bushes and over muddy rocks. The sound of the river was deafening, a constant roar that drowned out all other noise. After about a mile, Emma came to another problem. The river had flooded over its banks, creating a lake that stretched from the water's edge all the way to the forest. To continue following the river, Emma would have to wade through this lake. She could not see how deep it was. Emma stood at the edge of the flooded area, trying to decide what to do. She could try to go around, through the forest, but that would add hours to her journey. Or she could wade through, hoping the water was not too deep. She thought about Grace Stevens, trapped in her house, running out of insulin. Emma did not have hours to spare. She had to get there as quickly as possible. Taking a deep breath, Emma stepped into the water. It was shockingly cold, even through her boots. The first few steps were okay. The water only came up to her ankles, but then the ground dropped away, and suddenly the water was at her knees, then her thighs. Emma kept going, wading carefully through the flooded area. The current pulled at her legs. Underwater, she could not see where she was stepping. More than once, her foot came down on nothing, and she stumbled. But she managed to keep her balance, keep moving forward. The water got deeper. It reached her waist. Emma held her backpack above her head, trying to keep it dry. Her arms burned with the effort. The cold water numbed her legs. But she was more than halfway across now. She could not turn back. Finally, she reached the other side. Emma climbed out of the water, her legs shaking with exhaustion and cold. She collapsed on the muddy ground for a moment, just breathing. Her whole body hurt. Her knee felt like it was on fire, but she had made it. She checked her backpack. Everything inside was still dry, including the medical kit. The insulin was safe. Emma forced herself to stand. She checked her map one more time. According to her calculations, Cedar Road should be just ahead, maybe half a mile away. She was almost there. She started walking again, her wet clothes heavy and uncomfortable. Her boots made squelching sounds with every step. The light was fading fast now. It would be dark soon. Emma pulled a small flashlight from her pocket and turned it on, shining it ahead of her. After what felt like forever, Emma saw something through the trees. A building, a house. It was sitting in the middle of a flooded area, water all around it like a moat. The lights were off. It looked dark and abandoned, but it was the Stevens house. It had to be. Emma had delivered mail here many times. She recognized the red door, the small porch with its rocking chairs. "Hello," Emma shouted. "Hello? Is anyone there?" For a terrible moment, there was no response. Then a window on the second floor opened, and a man's head appeared. It was Jack Stevens, Grace's husband. "Who is there?" he called out. "It is Emma." "Emma Carter. I brought insulin," Emma shouted back. Emma! Jack's voice was full of disbelief. You came all this way? How did you— I will tell you later, Emma said. How do I get to you? The water is too deep to walk through, Jack called back. Wait there, I am coming out. A few minutes later, the red door opened. Jack Stevens appeared, wearing a wetsuit. He was carrying a rope. He tied one end to the porch railing, then waded into the water, holding the other end. He struggled through the flood toward Emma. The water reached his chest in places. When he reached Emma, Jack grabbed her hand. Hold on to the rope, he said. I will help you across. Together, they waded through the flood toward the house. Jack was right. The water was deep, deeper than what Emma had crossed before. Without the rope to hold on to, she might not have made it. But with Jack's help, she managed. They climbed onto the porch, both of them dripping wet and breathing hard. I cannot believe you made it here, Jack said. Carol Anderson called on the satellite phone and said someone was coming, but I did not really think anyone could get through. I made it, Emma said simply. She took off her backpack and carefully pulled out the medical kit. Here is the insulin. Is Grace all right? Come inside, Jack said. She will want to thank you herself. Inside the house, Emma found Grace Stevens lying on a couch covered with blankets. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and a kind face. She looked weak and pale, but she smiled when she saw Emma. You are an angel, Grace said softly. A real angel. Emma opened the medical kit and handed Jack the insulin and syringes. Dr. Patel gave me instructions, she said, but I am sure you know how to administer it better than I do. I have been doing it for 20 years, Jack said. He prepared a syringe with practiced hands and gave Grace the injection. She sighed with relief. Thank you, Grace said to Emma. You saved my life. I was getting so sick. Another day without insulin. She did not finish the sentence. You do not need to thank me, Emma said. I am just glad I could help. The Stevens family fed Emma dinner, heated soup, and bread. Emma had not realized how hungry she was until she started eating. She ate 3 bowls of soup and half a loaf of bread. The warm food helped her recover some strength. After dinner, Jack looked outside. It was completely dark now. You cannot go back tonight, he said. It is too dangerous. You will have to stay here until morning. Emma nodded. She had not really thought about the return journey. All her focus had been on getting here. But Jack was right. Trying to navigate through the forest and across the flooded areas in the dark would be foolish and dangerous. We have a guest room, Grace said. It is not much, but you are welcome to it. The guest room was small and simple, but to Emma it felt like luxury. She took off her wet clothes and hung them up to dry. Grace found her some dry clothes to wear, sweatpants and a t-shirt that were too big but comfortable. Emma lay down on the bed, and within minutes, she was asleep.
Emma woke to sunlight streaming through the window. For a moment, she was confused. Where was she? Then she remembered. The storm, the journey, the Stevens house. She sat up quickly, then groaned. Every muscle in her body hurt. Her knee was stiff and swollen, but she was alive, and so was Grace Stevens. She got out of bed carefully and looked out the window. The flood had gone down during the night. The water that had surrounded the house was now just a large puddle. The storm was over. The sky was blue, scattered with white clouds. It was beautiful. Emma found her clothes from yesterday. They were still damp, but not soaking wet anymore. She put them on, grimacing at the clammy feel. Then she went downstairs. Jack was in the kitchen, making breakfast. The smell of coffee and eggs filled the air. Grace was sitting at the table, looking much better than yesterday. She had color in her cheeks, and her eyes were bright. Good morning, Grace said cheerfully. How did you sleep? Like a rock, Emma said. She sat down at the table, accepting a cup of coffee gratefully. "You must be sore after yesterday," Jack said. "That was an incredible journey you made." "I am definitely sore," Emma admitted. "But I will be okay." They ate breakfast together. Jack had made scrambled eggs, toast, and bacon. It was simple, but delicious. As they ate, Jack explained that he had used the satellite phone to call the mayor that morning. The town was starting to recover from the storm. Roads were being cleared, power was being restored in some areas. The weather forecast said the next few days would be clear and sunny. "They are working on the road to Cedar Road," Jack said. "But it will take days to repair all the damage. Maybe even weeks. Until then, we are still pretty isolated up here." "Will you be all right?" Emma asked. "Do you have enough food and water?" "We will manage," Grace said. "And now we have plenty of insulin, thanks to you." After breakfast, Emma prepared to leave. The return journey would be long and difficult, but at least she would be walking in daylight, and the weather was good. Her knee worried her. It was more swollen than it had been in months, but she had no choice. She had to get back to Riverside. Jack wanted to come with her, to help her, but Grace needed him more. She was still weak from being without insulin for so long. So Emma said goodbye to both of them, promising to check on them as soon as the road was repaired. "You are a hero," Grace said, hugging Emma tightly. "Please be careful going back." "I will," Emma promised. She stepped out of the house and started walking. The sun was warm on her face. Birds sang in the trees. It was hard to believe that just 2 days ago, a terrible storm had been raging. Nature had a way of recovering quickly. Emma followed the same route back that she had taken to get here, along the river, through the flooded area that was now much shallower, up the rocky hillside, through the forest. Everything looked different in the daylight. Less frightening, more manageable. But her knee was a constant problem. Every step hurt. By the time Emma had been walking for 2 hours, she was limping badly. By 3 hours, she could barely put weight on her right leg. The pain was intense, sharp, and burning. She had to stop frequently to rest. Each time it was harder to start walking again. Her knee would stiffen up during the rest, and the first few steps after were agony. Emma thought about her old coach, Marcus. He used to say that running was as much mental as physical. When your body wanted to quit, your mind had to be strong enough to keep going. Emma had always been good at that, at pushing through pain and exhaustion to reach the finish line. This was no different. She just had to keep going, one step at a time. She crossed the fallen log over the creek again, even more carefully than before. She pushed through the dense underbrush. She navigated around obstacles and over hills. The journey seemed to take forever. By early afternoon, Emma was back on the dirt track that led to the paved road. Her progress was slow now. She could barely walk. Her knee felt like someone was stabbing it with knives, but the town was close. She just had to make it a little farther. Emma heard voices ahead. She looked up and saw a group of people walking toward her. As they got closer, she recognized them. Harold, Sarah, Ben, and several others from town. They were carrying supplies, ropes, and equipment. They had come looking for her. "Emma!" Sarah shouted, running forward. "Oh my God, we were so worried." They surrounded her, all talking at once, asking if she was okay, if she had made it to the Stevens house, if Grace was all right. Emma tried to answer, but suddenly she felt dizzy. Her knee buckled, and she started to fall. Ben caught her before she hit the ground. "Whoa, easy there. Let us get you back to town." They fashioned a makeshift stretcher using rope and jackets. Emma was too exhausted and in too much pain to protest. They lifted her carefully and began carrying her back toward Riverside. As they walked, Emma told them about her journey, about crossing the flooded areas, about wading through chest-deep water, about reaching the Stevens house just in time. She told them that Grace was okay, that the insulin had arrived in time, that the family would survive until the road could be repaired. "You are amazing," Sarah said, walking beside the stretcher and holding Emma's hand. "The whole town is talking about you. What you did was incredibly brave." "Or incredibly foolish," Emma said, trying to smile. "I am not sure which." "Brave," Harold said firmly from the front of the stretcher. "Definitely brave." By the time they reached Riverside, word had spread that Emma was coming back. People lined the streets, clapping and cheering. Children waved. Someone had made a banner that said, "Welcome home, hero Emma." It was all overwhelming. They took Emma straight to Dr. Patel's clinic. The doctor examined her knee carefully, pressing and prodding while Emma tried not to wince. "You have put a lot of stress on this knee," Dr. Patel said seriously. "The good news is you have not torn anything, but you have severely inflamed the old injury. You need to rest, ice it, and take anti-inflammatory medication. No walking for at least a week." "A week?" Emma protested. "But my mail route—" "Harold can cover it," Dr. Patel said firmly, "or we will find someone else. Your health is more important than mail. You need to rest, Emma. You pushed your knee to its limit, maybe beyond its limit. If you do not take care of it now, you could cause permanent damage." Emma nodded reluctantly. The doctor was right. She had pushed herself hard, maybe too hard, but Grace Stevens was alive because of it. That made it worth it. Part 8. A Hero's Welcome. The next week was strange for Emma. She stayed in her cottage, her knee propped up on pillows, ice packs wrapped around it. People came to visit constantly, bringing food, flowers, and books. Everyone wanted to hear the story of her journey to Cedar Road. Everyone wanted to thank her for saving Grace Stevens. Sarah visited every day, bringing news from town. The cleanup from the storm was ongoing. Roads were being repaired. Power had been restored to most areas. The town was slowly getting back to normal. "You are famous," Sarah told Emma one afternoon. "The story has spread beyond Riverside. The regional newspaper wrote an article about you. They are calling you the marathon mail carrier who became a hero." Emma winced at the title. "I wish they would not make such a big deal out of it. I just did what anyone would do." "No," Sarah said firmly. "Most people would not have done what you did. Most people would have been too scared, or not physically able, or would have found reasons to let someone else do it. You are special, Emma. I wish you could see that." Emma looked at her friend. "For a long time, I thought I was special because I could run fast. When I lost that, I felt like I was not special anymore, like I was just ordinary." "And now?" Sarah asked. Emma thought about it. "Now I am not sure. Maybe being special is not about what you can do. Maybe it is about what you choose to do when it matters." Sarah smiled. "That is very wise." On the 8th day after her return, Emma's knee was feeling better. The swelling had gone down, and the pain had reduced to a dull ache. Dr. Patel examined it again and gave her permission to start walking short distances. Emma's first walk took her to the post office. Harold was behind the counter, sorting mail. His face lit up when he saw her. "Emma, you are up and about. How is the knee?" "Much better," Emma said. "Dr. Patel says I can start working again next week if I take it easy." "That is wonderful," Harold said, "but you do not need to rush back. We have been managing. Ben has been helping with the roots. He is not as fast as you, but he gets the job done." "I want to come back," Emma said. "I miss it. The walking, the people, the routine. I miss being useful." Harold studied her. "You know, you have changed since you first arrived in Riverside. You seemed lost then, like you did not know who you were anymore. Now you seem found." Emma thought about that. "Maybe I am," she said, "or maybe I am still figuring it out. But I feel different than I did before. Better." That afternoon, The mayor called Emma and asked her to come to town hall. When Emma arrived, she found a large crowd gathered. The entire town seemed to be there. A small stage had been set up at the front of the room. "What is going on?" Emma asked Sarah, who was waiting near the door. "You will see," Sarah said, smiling mysteriously. Mayor Anderson stepped onto the stage and called for quiet. "Thank you all for coming," she said. "We are here today to honor someone very special." Emma Carter came to Riverside a little over a year ago. She was quiet, kept to herself, did her job as our mail carrier with dedication and care. But we did not really know Emma. We did not know what she was capable of. The mayor paused, looking at Emma. 2 weeks ago, when the storm came and the Stevens family was in danger, Emma did something extraordinary. She walked 12 miles through terrible conditions, through flooded areas and dense forest, over hills and across rivers, carrying medical supplies that saved Grace Stevens's life. She put her own safety at risk to help her neighbors. She showed courage, strength, and compassion. The crowd began to clap. Mayor Anderson raised her hand for silence. Today, on behalf of the entire town of Riverside, I want to present Emma with this award. She held up a plaque. It is the Riverside Community Hero Award, which we are establishing today. Emma is the first recipient, and a worthy one. Emma walked up to the stage, her face hot with embarrassment. She accepted the plaque from the mayor. It was heavy wood with a brass plate that read, "Emma Carter, Community Hero, for extraordinary courage and selfless service." "Speech!" someone called from the crowd. Others joined in. "Speech! Speech!" Emma stood at the microphone, looking out at the sea of faces. These were her neighbors, her friends, people she had come to care about over the past year. She took a deep breath. "I do not know what to say," she began. "I am not good at speeches. But I want you to know that what I did was not really about being brave or being a hero. It was about being part of a community. When I first came to Riverside, I was broken. I had lost my career, my identity, my sense of purpose. I felt like my life was over." Emma paused, gathering her thoughts. "But this town gave me a second chance. You gave me a job, a home, a place to belong. You were kind to me when I did not deserve kindness. You accepted me without knowing who I was or where I came from. When Grace Stevens needed help, I did not think about being brave. I just thought about how this community had helped me, and how I could give something back." She looked down at the plaque in her hands. "So thank you. Thank you for this award, but more importantly, thank you for giving me a reason to get up in the morning. Thank you for reminding me that life goes on, even after you think it is over. Thank you for showing me that I can still make a difference, even if I am not running marathons anymore." The crowd erupted in applause. People stood up, clapping and cheering. Emma saw Sarah wiping tears from her eyes. Harold was beaming with pride. Ben gave her a thumbs up from the back of the room. After the ceremony, people surrounded Emma, shaking her hand, hugging her, thanking her. It was overwhelming and wonderful at the same time. Emma had spent so many years being recognized for her running achievements, but those achievements had always felt somehow distant, impersonal. This was different. These people were not impressed by her speed or her medals. They were grateful for what she had done for one of their own. Later that evening, Emma sat on the small porch of her cottage, looking out at the ocean. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The plaque sat beside her on the bench. She picked it up and read the inscription again. "Community Hero." The words made her feel strange, proud, but also humble. She thought about her journey, both the 12-mile walk to Cedar Road and the longer journey of the past year. She had come to Riverside lost and broken. She had thought her life was over, that she would never matter again, never be important, never make a difference. But she had been wrong. She had mattered. She had made a difference. Not by running fast, not by winning races, but by showing up, by being present, by caring about other people. That was what heroism really was, Emma realized. Not grand gestures or athletic achievements, but the willingness to help when help was needed. Her phone rang. Emma looked at the screen and saw it was her mother. She answered. "Emma," her mother said, "I just heard about what you did." "The story is all over the news. My daughter, the hero." Emma laughed. "It is being blown out of proportion, Mom. I just walked to a house and delivered some medicine." "You saved someone's life," her mother said seriously. "That is not nothing. I am so proud of you. Not just for what you did, but for who you have become. When you moved to Riverside, I worried about you. You seemed so sad, so lost. But now you sound different. You sound happy." "I am happy," Emma said, surprised to realize it was true. "I have a good life here. It is not the life I planned, but it is a good one." "That is all any of us can hope for," her mother said. "I love you, sweetheart." "I love you too, Mom." After the call ended, Emma sat for a while longer, watching the ocean. The tide was coming in, waves rolling gently onto the beach. The sound was soothing, rhythmic, like the sound of footsteps running on pavement. Emma stood up. She walked down the steps of her porch and onto the beach. The sand was cool under her feet. She started walking along the shore, then increased her pace to a jog. Her knee twinged a little, but it was manageable. Not bad at all. She jogged for maybe a quarter mile, then stopped. She stood with her feet in the shallow water, breathing hard, but feeling good. She had not run, even this little bit, in over a year. It felt strange but also familiar, like greeting an old friend. Emma knew she would never race again. That part of her life was truly over. But maybe she could run for other reasons. For health, for joy, for the simple pleasure of moving through the world on her own 2 feet. That would be enough. As she walked back to her cottage, Emma thought about the next day. She would wake up early, go to the post office, load up her mail bags, and walk her route through Riverside. She would deliver letters and packages. She would say hello to her neighbors. She would do her job. It was a simple life, an ordinary life, but it was hers, and it was good. Part 9. New Paths. 3 months after the storm, spring came to Riverside. Flowers bloomed in gardens. Trees grew new leaves. The damage from the storm had been repaired. The roads were clear, businesses were open, and life had returned to normal. Or rather, a new normal. Emma had returned to her mail route, though she still had to be careful with her knee. Dr. Patel had told her the joint would never be as strong as it once was, but with proper care, it could serve her well for many years. Emma wore a knee brace when she worked, took anti-inflammatory medication regularly, and did strengthening exercises every morning. The town treated her differently now. Before the storm, she had been the quiet mail carrier, someone people knew by sight, but not well. Now, everyone knew her name. People invited her to dinner, to parties, to community events. Children waved at her and called her Hero Emma. It was flattering but also sometimes uncomfortable. Emma did not feel like a hero. She felt like someone who had done what needed to be done. One April morning, Emma was delivering mail on Cedar Road. The road had finally been repaired, though it was still rough in places. She pulled up to the Stevens house and got out of her postal van. The house looked much better now. Jack had repainted the front door and fixed the damaged porch. Grace came out to greet Emma with a big smile. "Emma! Come in, come in. I just made fresh lemonade." Emma followed Grace into the house. They sat in the kitchen, drinking lemonade and talking about small things. How Grace's diabetes was doing, how the garden was growing, how Jack's fishing had been. "You know," Grace said after a while, "I have been thinking about something. That night you came here, in the middle of the storm, you risked your life for me, for someone you barely knew. You were in danger. Emma said simply. I had to help. But why? Grace asked. I have been wondering about that. What made you willing to do something so dangerous for a stranger? Emma thought about the question. She had asked herself the same thing many times. I guess, she said slowly, it was because I needed to prove something to myself. For a long time, I felt like I was worthless. I had built my whole identity around being a runner, and when I could not run anymore, I felt like I was nothing. Helping you showed me that I was wrong. I could still do important things. I could still matter. Grace reached across the table and took Emma's hand. You matter very much. Not just because of what you did for me, but because of who you are. Never forget that. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. As spring turned to summer, Emma found herself thinking about the future. She was content with her life in Riverside, but she also felt like something was missing. She had found purpose in helping Grace Stevens, but that had been a one-time event. She wanted to find a way to help people regularly, to make a difference as part of her everyday life. One evening, Emma was having dinner with Sarah at the small restaurant on Main Street. They were talking about the upcoming town festival when Sarah said something that caught Emma's attention. I heard that the community center is looking for volunteers, Sarah said. They want to start a running club for kids, teach them about fitness, healthy habits, that sort of thing. I thought of you immediately. Emma's first reaction was to say no. Running was part of her past, not her future. But then she thought about it more. Maybe teaching others to run would be a way to stay connected to the sport she loved without trying to be a professional athlete again. Tell me more, Emma said. Sarah explained that the community center wanted to start a youth running program. They needed someone to coach the kids, plan practices, organize fun runs, someone with experience and knowledge, someone like Emma. I do not know, Emma said hesitantly. I am not sure I would be a good coach. Are you kidding? Sarah said. You would be perfect. You know everything about running. You understand what it takes to train properly, and more importantly, you care about people. That is what makes a good coach. Emma thought about it for several days. Finally, she called the community center and said she was interested. They were thrilled. They set up a meeting with Emma to discuss details. The running program would meet 3 times a week after school. Any child in town could join, no experience necessary. Emma would teach them basic running techniques, lead them in exercises and drills, and help them build their fitness gradually. There would be no pressure to compete or win. The focus would be on fun, health, and personal improvement. Emma agreed to give it a try. In June, the Riverside Youth Running Club had its first meeting. Emma had expected maybe a dozen kids to show up. Instead, 30 children arrived at the community center, ranging in age from 8 to 16. They were excited, energetic, and loud. Emma stood in front of them, suddenly nervous. She had run in front of thousands of spectators, had been interviewed on television, had met with sponsors and racing officials. But standing in front of these 30 kids, she felt more nervous than she had in years. Hi, everyone, she said. I am Emma. I am going to be your coach. How many of you have done any running before? About half the kids raised their hands. Emma smiled. That is okay. You do not need to have experience. We are going to start from the beginning, and we are all going to learn together. She had planned a simple first practice, a warm-up, some basic stretching, a short, easy run, and a cool down. Nothing too challenging, but even this simple practice was hard for many of the kids. Some were out of breath after just a few minutes. Some complained that running was boring. Some wanted to race each other immediately. Emma remembered what her first coach had told her many years ago. Running is hard at first. Your body has to learn what to do. But if you keep at it, if you do not give up, it gets easier. And then it becomes something you love. Over the next weeks and months, Emma threw herself into coaching. She planned creative practices that kept the kids engaged. Relay races, obstacle courses, scavenger hunts that involved running to different locations in town. She taught them proper form, how to breathe, how to pace themselves. She also taught them about sportsmanship, perseverance, and the importance of setting goals. Some of the kids showed real talent. There was Miguel, a 12-year-old boy who had natural speed. There was Lily, a 14-year-old girl who had incredible endurance. There was Thomas, a quiet 8-year-old who was slow but never gave up. Emma worked with each child individually, helping them improve at their own pace. She never compared them to each other, never made anyone feel bad for being slow or uncoordinated. She remembered how her own coaches had pushed her, sometimes too hard, and she was determined to be different. The kids loved her. They called her Coach Emma and ran to greet her whenever they saw her on her mail route. Parents told Emma that their children talked about running club constantly, that they were more active and energetic than they had been before. In August, Emma organized the club's first fun run, a 5-kilometer route around Riverside. She expected only the club members to participate. Instead, over 100 people signed up, including adults who wanted to support the program. The entire town seemed to turn out to watch. Emma stood at the starting line with her young runners. They were nervous and excited, bouncing on their toes, checking their shoelaces. Emma gave them some last-minute advice. Do not start too fast. Pace yourselves. And remember, this is not about winning. It is about finishing, about doing your best, about having fun. The race started. Emma ran with the kids, staying at the back of the pack to encourage the slower runners. She watched Miguel sprint ahead, his form smooth and efficient. She cheered for Lily as she maintained a steady pace. She ran alongside Thomas, who was struggling but determined not to stop. You are doing great, Emma told him. Just keep going. One foot in front of the other. Thomas nodded, too out of breath to speak, but he kept running. He did not quit. When Thomas crossed the finish line, 45 minutes after the race started, the crowd cheered for him just as loudly as they had for Miguel, who had finished first. Thomas's face lit up with pride. He had done it. He had finished his first race. Emma felt something warm and full in her chest. Pride, but also something more. Joy. Purpose. This was why she was here. This was what she was meant to do. After the race, as Emma was packing up the equipment, Mayor Anderson came over to her. Emma, the mayor said, I have been meaning to talk to you. The town council has been very impressed with the work you have been doing with the running club. We would like to make it a permanent program, part of the community center's offerings. And we would like to hire you as the official youth athletics coordinator. Emma stared at her. What does that mean? It means you would work for the town, developing sports and fitness programs for young people. The running club would continue, but you could also start other programs, soccer, basketball, maybe a fitness class for teenagers. Whatever you think would benefit the community. It would be a part-time position, so you could still do your mail route if you wanted. Or you could do this full-time. It is up to you. Emma's mind was spinning. A few months ago, she had been content just delivering mail, happy to have any purpose at all. Now she was being offered a job that would let her share her love of sports with young people, help them develop healthy habits, maybe even discover their own passions. Yes, Emma said. Yes, I would love to do that. Mayor Anderson smiled. I am glad. You have become an important part of this community, Emma. We are lucky to have you. Emma reduced her mail route to 2 days a week and took on the new position at the community center. She threw herself into developing new programs. A soccer league for elementary school kids, a basketball clinic, a general fitness class for teenagers who were not interested in specific sports but wanted to be more active. All the programs were successful. Kids who had never played sports before discovered they enjoyed them. Teenagers who had spent most of their time on phones and computers found themselves outside, moving, sweating, laughing. Parents were grateful that their children had healthy activities to participate in, but the running club remained Emma's favorite. She loved watching the kids improve week by week, seeing them set personal records, helping them work through challenges. Some of the original members had been running for 6 months now, and the difference was remarkable. They were faster, stronger, more confident. One September afternoon, Emma got a phone call. The voice on the other end was familiar, but Emma could not quite place it. "Emma, this is Marcus Rodriguez, your old coach." Emma's heart skipped. She had not spoken to Marcus since her injury, more than 2 years ago. She had cut off contact with everyone from her old life, wanting to make a clean break. "Marcus," she said. "Hi. How did you find me?" "I read an article about you," Marcus said, "about how you saved that woman during the storm and about the youth running program you started. Emma, I am so proud of you. When you got injured, I worried about you so much. You were so lost, so hurt. But it sounds like you have found your way." "I have," Emma said. "It took a while, but yes, I have found a new path."
"I am calling because I have been thinking," Marcus said. "There is a charity marathon in Boston next month. The money raised goes to youth sports programs in underserved communities. I am organizing a team of former athletes to run it. Not to race, just to participate, to raise awareness and funds. I wondered if you would be interested in joining us." Emma's immediate reaction was to say no. She had not run more than a few miles at a time since her injury. A marathon was 26 miles. She did not think her knee could handle it, but then she thought about it more. She would not be racing. There would be no pressure to finish fast, no expectations to win. She could just run or walk if she needed to and enjoy being part of something good. The money would help kids like the ones in her running club. "I do not know if I can finish," Emma said honestly. "My knee is not what it used to be." "That does not matter," Marcus said. "This is not about finishing times. It is about showing up, about supporting a good cause. And Emma, I think it might be good for you. A way to make peace with what happened, to close that chapter of your life properly." Emma thought about her last marathon, the race in Boston where she had been injured. She had never gotten closure on that experience. She had run away from it, literally and figuratively. Maybe it was time to face it. "All right," Emma said. "I will do it." Over the next month, Emma trained carefully. She increased her mileage gradually, listening to her body, resting when she needed to. Her knee hurt sometimes, but not badly. She wore her brace and took her medication. She ran along the beach in Riverside, through the streets of town, up into the hills. Some days, members of her running club ran with her, chattering excitedly about Coach Emma running a marathon. Sarah trained with her too. Sarah had never run more than a few miles before, but she decided to sign up for the marathon as well. "If you can do it, I can do it," she said. "We will finish together." The day of the marathon arrived. Emma and Sarah flew to Boston together. Marcus met them at the airport with big hugs. He looked older than Emma remembered, his hair grayer, his face more lined. But his smile was the same. "I am so glad you are here," he told Emma. "This means a lot to me." The team of former athletes met for dinner the night before the race. There were 20 of them, runners who had all competed at high levels and then moved on to other lives. They shared stories, laughed, talked about their current careers and families. Emma realized that she was not the only one who had struggled after leaving competitive running. Many of them had felt lost, had questioned their identities, had needed time to figure out who they were beyond their sport, but they had all found their way eventually, just like Emma had. The realization was comforting. She was not alone in her journey. The morning of the marathon was cool and clear. Perfect running weather. Emma stood at the starting line with Sarah and Marcus. Thousands of other runners surrounded them, some serious racers in the front, casual runners like them farther back. Emma felt nervous but also excited. This was familiar territory, but she was approaching it in a completely new way. The gun fired. The crowd surged forward. Emma and Sarah started running together, keeping an easy pace. Emma's knee felt okay. No pain, just a slight stiffness that she knew would ease up once she warmed up. They ran through the streets of Boston. The crowds along the route cheered and held up signs. Emma smiled and waved at them. 2 years ago, in her last marathon, she had been focused entirely on winning, on pushing her body to its limit. She had barely noticed the spectators. Now she saw them, appreciated them, felt connected to them. At mile 10, Emma's knee started to hurt. Not terribly, but enough to slow her down. Sarah noticed immediately. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked. "Do you need to stop?" "I am fine," Emma said. "Just need to slow down a bit." They reduced their pace from a run to a jog. Marcus dropped back to run with them. "No rush," he said. "We have all day." They reached the halfway point. 13 miles down, 13 to go. Emma's knee was definitely bothering her now, but it was manageable. She could keep going. At mile 20, Emma was limping slightly. The pain in her knee was constant now, a sharp ache with every step. She thought about stopping, about calling it quits. But then she thought about Thomas, the little boy in her running club who never gave up even when he was tired and slow. She thought about Grace Stevens, lying on that couch, sick and scared. She thought about all the challenges she had overcome in the past 2 years. She could do this. She just needed to keep going. "Emma," Sarah said, concern in her voice, "you are hurting. We can stop. We do not have to finish." "Yes, we do," Emma said. "I need to finish, not for anyone else, for me." They kept going. Mile 21, mile 22. The course took them past the spot where Emma had fallen during her last marathon. She looked at the pavement, remembering that terrible moment of pain and loss. But she did not stop. She kept running. Mile 23, mile 24. Other runners passed them, but Emma did not care. She was not racing them. She was not racing anyone. She was just running, moving forward one step at a time. Mile 25. Almost there. Emma's entire body hurt now. Her knee was on fire. Her legs felt like lead. But she could see the finish line ahead. The big banner stretched across the street. The crowds cheering. She crossed the finish line with Sarah and Marcus on either side of her. 4 hours and 37 minutes after starting. It was the slowest marathon Emma had ever run. It was also the most meaningful. A volunteer put a medal around Emma's neck. Emma looked down at it, tears streaming down her face. Not tears of sadness, but of joy, of pride, of completion. She had come back to Boston. She had finished a marathon. She had made peace with her past. "You did it," Sarah said, hugging her tightly. "I am so proud of you." "We did it together," Emma said. That evening, at the celebration dinner, Marcus gave a speech. He talked about the purpose of the charity marathon, about helping young athletes access the resources they needed to pursue their dreams. Then he pointed at Emma. "I want to recognize someone special," he said. Emma Carter was one of the best marathon runners I ever coached. When she got injured, I thought her running career was over. In a sense, it was. But Emma found a new way to be involved in running. She is now a coach herself, working with young people, teaching them to love the sport. She embodies what this charity is all about: giving back, helping the next generation, using our experiences to make the world better. Everyone clapped. Emma felt her face flush. but she also felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Marcus was right. She had found a new way to be involved in running, not as an athlete, but as a mentor, a teacher, a guide. After the dinner, Emma and Marcus walked together along the Charles River. The water reflected the city lights, creating patterns of gold and silver. "I am sorry I did not stay in touch after my injury," Emma said. "I needed to get away from everything, to figure things out on my own." "I understand," Marcus said. "Losing something you love is hard. Everyone needs to process that in their own way. I am just glad you found your path." "Did you know I would?" Emma asked. "When I left Chicago, when I moved to Riverside, did you think I would be okay?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, I was not sure. You were in a dark place, but I also knew you. I knew you were strong, determined, resilient. I believed that eventually you would find a way forward. I am glad I was right." They walked in comfortable silence for a while. Then Emma said, "Thank you, Marcus, for everything you taught me. Not just about running, but about discipline, perseverance, pushing through challenges. Those lessons helped me survive the last 2 years." "You are welcome," Marcus said. "But Emma, you should thank yourself too. You are the one who did the hard work, who rebuilt your life, who found new meaning. That was all you." Emma thought about that. Maybe Marcus was right. Maybe she deserved some credit for how far she had come. 3 years later, Emma stood on the beach in Riverside, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. It was a warm evening in late summer. Behind her, she could hear the sounds of the town preparing for the annual Riverside Fun Run, which had grown from a small event with 100 participants to a major community celebration with over 500 runners. Emma was now the full-time youth athletics coordinator for Riverside. She had expanded the program significantly. The town now had running clubs for different age groups, soccer and basketball leagues, a swimming program, and even a rock climbing wall at the community center. Emma had also started a mentorship program, pairing young athletes with adults in the community who shared their interests. The running club had produced several talented young runners. Miguel had gone on to win regional championships. Lily had earned a college scholarship for cross country. Even Thomas, who had been so slow and uncertain at first, was now running competitively and loving it. Emma still delivered mail 2 days a week. She loved that job and did not want to give it up completely. It kept her connected to the community in a different way, allowed her to check on her neighbors, especially the elderly ones like Mrs. Kowalski, who looked forward to her visits. Her knee still bothered her sometimes, especially on cold or rainy days. She wore her brace when needed and did her physical therapy exercises faithfully. She would never run at her old pace again, never compete at elite levels. But she could jog for exercise, could demonstrate techniques to her students, could participate in charity races. That was enough. Sarah walked up beside her, slipping her hand into Emma's. They had been together for a year now, their friendship having slowly developed into something deeper. Sarah still ran the bookshop, but she was also Emma's assistant coach, helping with the various sports programs and events. "Ready for tomorrow?" Sarah asked. "It is going to be a big day." "I think so," Emma said. "Everything is organized. The course is marked. The volunteers know their jobs. It should go smoothly." "Nervous?" Sarah asked. Emma thought about it. A little, but also excited. "I love seeing the whole community come together like this." The next morning, the Riverside Fun Run began at 8 o'clock. Runners of all ages and abilities gathered at the starting line on Main Street. Emma saw familiar faces everywhere. Members of her running club, their parents, townspeople she had known for 3 years now. There were also visitors from other towns, people who had heard about the event and wanted to participate. Emma gave the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go! The runners took off, a colorful stream of humanity flowing through the streets of Riverside. Emma ran with them, staying at the back to encourage the slower participants. She ran past the post office where Harold waved from the door, past Sarah's bookshop where a sign in the window said, "Go Runners," past the community center where so many of her programs took place, past Mrs. Kowalski's house where the elderly woman sat on her porch, clapping and cheering. The route took the runners along the beach, up into the hills, and back down to Main Street. Emma ran the entire course, finishing in just over an hour. Her knee hurt a little by the end, but not badly. She felt good, strong, alive. After the race, there was a community festival in the town park. Food vendors, live music, games for children. The mayor gave awards to the fastest runners in different age categories, but also to the oldest participant, the youngest participant, and the person who traveled farthest to attend. Everyone was celebrated. Emma stood to the side, watching the festivities. She thought about how much her life had changed in 3 years. She had come to Riverside lost and broken, unsure if she would ever find happiness again. Now she had a career she loved, a partner who supported her, a community that valued her. She had purpose and meaning. She had a place where she belonged. Grace and Jack Stevens came over to talk to her. Grace was doing well, her diabetes under control, her health good. She and Jack never forgot what Emma had done for them. They volunteered regularly with Emma's programs, helping coach and organize events. "Another successful fun run," Grace said. "You should be proud, Emma." "We all should be proud," Emma said. "It takes the whole community to make something like this happen." "True," Grace said, "but it takes someone with vision to start it." That someone was you. As the sun began to set and the festival wound down, Emma walked back to her cottage. She had moved from the small rental to a slightly larger place, a house with a garden and a view of the ocean. She and Sarah were talking about moving in together, maybe next year. Emma sat on her porch, looking out at the water. The ocean was calm tonight, gentle waves rolling onto the shore. She could hear distant music from the festival, laughter and conversation carried on the evening breeze. She thought about her old life as a professional runner. It seemed like a different lifetime, like it had happened to a different person. In some ways, it had. Emma Carter, the marathon champion, and Emma Carter, the community youth coordinator, were almost two separate people. They shared a body, shared memories, but their identities were different. Yet both were real. Both were important. Emma did not have to choose between them. She could honor her past while embracing her present and future. Her phone rang. Emma looked at the screen. It was Marcus. "Hey, Marcus," Emma answered. "What is up?" "I wanted to tell you something," Marcus said. "Remember that charity marathon we did a few years ago? The one that raises money for youth sports programs?" "Of course," Emma said. "I run it every year now." "Well, the organization is expanding," Marcus said. "They want to start regional chapters all over the country, developing youth athletics programs in small communities. And they asked me if I knew anyone who would be perfect to run the chapter in your region. I immediately thought of you." Emma's heart beat faster. "What would that involve?" "You would basically do what you are already doing in Riverside, but help other small towns set up similar programs. You would train coaches, develop curriculum, organize events. You would be helping communities all across your state provide opportunities for young athletes. It would be part-time, on top of your current job. But the organization would provide funding, resources, support." Emma thought about it. It sounded like an amazing opportunity, a chance to expand the work she loved, to help even more young people discover the joy of sports and fitness. "Can I think about it?" Emma asked. "Of course," Marcus said. "Take your time." "But Emma, you would be perfect for this. You have done incredible things in Riverside. Imagine if you could help other communities do the same." After the call ended, Emma sat on her porch for a long time, thinking. The position Marcus described was exciting, but it would also be a lot of work, a lot of responsibility. Was she ready for that? Then she smiled. 3 years ago, when she first arrived in Riverside, broken and lost, she could never have imagined this moment. She could never have imagined being happy again, having purpose again, being offered opportunities to make a difference. Life had a funny way of working out, she thought. Not always the way you planned, but sometimes in ways that were even better. Emma looked down at her knee, at the scar from her surgery visible even now. That injury had ended one life, but allowed another to begin. It had been terrible at the time, devastating. But now, looking back, Emma could almost see it as a gift, a painful gift, but a gift nonetheless. It had forced her to reinvent herself, to discover new strengths, to find new ways to matter. She thought about the kids in her running club, the teenagers in her basketball league, the families who participated in her programs. She thought about Grace Stevens, alive and healthy because Emma had been brave enough to make a difficult journey. She thought about the town of Riverside, this community that had welcomed her and given her a chance to start over. Emma stood up from her porch chair. She walked down to the beach and took off her shoes, letting her feet sink into the cool sand. She started to jog along the shore, her pace easy and relaxed. The waves rolled in beside her. The sky above was filled with stars. And Emma ran, not away from anything, but toward everything. Toward her future, whatever it might hold. She was not running to win anymore. She was not running to prove anything. She was just running because it felt good, because she could, because she wanted to. And that, Emma realized, was the best reason of all. She ran until she was tired, then walked back to her house. Tomorrow she would call Marcus and tell him yes, she was interested in the regional position. Tomorrow she would start planning new ways to help more communities. Tomorrow she would keep building the life she had created. But tonight, she was just Emma. Not a champion, not a hero, just Emma. And that was enough. More than enough, it was everything. As she fell asleep that night, Emma smiled. She had lost her old dream, that was true. But in its place, she had found something better. A new dream, built on helping others, on community, on showing young people that they could be strong and capable and important. A dream built not on personal glory, but on service and connection. It was a good dream, maybe even a better one than the first. And Emma knew with absolute certainty that she would spend the rest of her life making that dream real. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'd love to hear what inspired you the most. And where in the world are you watching from? Let us know below.